There's a controversial high school policy that some say discriminates against immigrants. The LHSAA says any student without a social security number can't play high school sports.
And now some people are fighting back. Carice Jackman spoke with athletes and attorneys who say it's unconstitutional and cruel. Carice?
That's right, Ton and Natalie. The association spoke with us over the phone tonight, and they tell us that, look, this law is nothing new. Regardless, those on the opposite side of it say it's problematic, especially for very young, talented athletes who want to seek a higher education. Kicking around the soccer ball with his friends at Easton Park in Mid-City is a passion for Johnny Vasquez. His family's from Honduras, and he adores the sport.
My school doesn't have a soccer team, but that doesn't stop me. I come out here, I play with my friends, I play pickup games, whatever it is, but I really try to improve my skill. Hearing about a policy that potentially prevents other students from perfecting their skill bothers him. I haven't seen it at my high school, but I definitely have heard of, some of my classmates talking about it, that they're worried about it because, they really enjoy playing the sport that they're doing. He's talking about a policy currently in place by the Louisiana High School Athletic Association, which requires all high school athletes to have a social security number. If they don't, they can't play. It's been in place for a while, but according to our partners at the New Orleans Advocate, it's getting new attention after the association sent out a memo this month warning coaches that there's been an influx in student athletes showing their state-issued student ID numbers rather than the last 4 digits of their social security numbers. Alana Odoms-Abear, executive director of the ACLU, released her own statement calling the rule cruel and unconstitutional.
If you are here in our borders, you are entitled to receive a free public education, and by extension, you would be entitled to take part in extracurricular activities like sports.
She also believes it's a rule that targets a wide range of people.
You can be an asylee, someone who's seeking asylum here. You can be on a temporary work visa. All of these are legal ways that young people would be in our country and would be here in Louisiana.
Something Vasquez can agree with.
It's really discriminatory. I think it's awful.
Now, officials also tell us that the rule is under review and could likely come up in their executive committee meeting sometime next week. If not there, it will definitely come up at their January convention. Reporting live at City Park, I'm Carice Jackman, Eyewitness News.
Carice, thank you.